Burn rate. How startups spend their money. What determines if a startup succeeds or fails? Its level of spending. Decisions about how much to spend on product launches, how much initial funding to raise, and how much funds to allocate are crucial. Most startups spend aggressively to the point of waste and mismanagement of precious resources. A startup might have trouble meeting demand or might not aggressively explore opportunities for profit if funds are misallocated. So how a startup spends its funding can make or break the business. It's important for startups to understand the financial side of their business and the risks of not doing so. If you've ever wondered how startups allocate the massive funds that they raise, then stay tuned and remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to get updated whenever there's a new video on the channel. How startups spend their money. Most startups allocate their funds carefully. A large portion of their budget goes towards marketing, sales, research, and development. Funding in these areas are critical to the success of a startup. However, the amount allocated to each depends on the business and its stage of growth. The growth of a startup is majorly dependent on acquiring new customers and expanding into new markets. To do this, startups allocate funds towards marketing and sales. Marketing ensures the brand of a startup is seen to attract new customers. It can be expensive, but it's an essential process for early-stage startups. For startups to sell their products or services to make money, they invest in marketing and sales. Startups also invest in research and development to create new innovations and solutions to industry problems. Now comes the need to seek legal advice. Legal advice might not be as glamorous as marketing, however, it is definitely every bit as important. Unfortunately for most startups, this number is one expense that usually gets ignored. Startup companies are known to get into lots of uncharted territories during their early years. A lot of them run into legal trouble sometimes, and to avoid these traps, the smart ones seek legal advice and keep good lawyers on their payroll. Lawsuits can be expensive, especially for startups, and just one nasty lawsuit can end the life of a very promising startup, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Another essential area that startups allocate funds to is the hiring process of its top talents. For a startup, hiring top talent shows that they're prepared to pay competitive salaries. Salary payment is just one of the many expenses startups have, and doing this efficiently can be challenging, which makes it so important for funds to be allocated correctly. For a startup, underpaying your team could lead to low employee satisfaction, which shouldn't be the foundation of a company. For startups that aren't based remotely, they must also cover the cost of an office space, equipment, SaaS tools, and other operational expenses. When deciding financing, all of these costs are taken into account. A common mistake made by startups is a misunderstanding of the financial side of a business. It can lead to poor decision making, which could jeopardize the success of a venture and ultimately tank a project before it can even make it off the ground. Here are a few examples of excesses startups allocate funds to that shouldn't be prioritized. Number 1. Fancy offices. Startups are largely dependent on the employees that work for them. As a result, they want to incentivize talented employees to leave their cushy, well-paying jobs at multinational corporations. In their bid to do so, they often go overboard. They tend to spend an inordinate amount of money trying to have the coolest office in town. It may be necessary to provide employees with a safe and secure environment. However, it is not necessary to provide them with unlimited snacks and drinks. It's true that companies like Google have such fancy offices. However, it would be better for a startup to first build a robust business model and only then splurge on expensive offices. Number 2. Customer acquisition. This is another area where a lot of startups tend to splurge money. Recently, companies have started a trend of acquiring market share before they become profitable. Oftentimes, startups tend to give their products or services at throwaway prices. In most of these cases, the organization makes a loss from these sales and is better off not selling at all. But oftentimes, losses are considered an investment in customer acquisition, and most startups are heavily invested in this idea that customers will get hooked on a product and will eventually start paying for it. Many startups have learned the hard way that this is not always true though. In most cases, such policies only attract freeloaders. These customers are quick to desert the company once they're asked to pay for the product or service. Startups should, therefore, focus their attention on getting genuine customers rather than discounting their products to freeloaders. Number 3. Operational expenses. Startups often want to compete with corporate giants, so they tend to buy some of the same tools that these giants use. For many startups though, this is not a financially viable strategy. Startups should make use of the benefits of modern technology. Many services are reasonably priced. They can be obtained by paying a fraction of what big service providers like Google and Microsoft would demand. Startups must first acknowledge that their operations are small, and hence the tools used by megacorporations may be too expensive as far as their business is concerned. Number 4. Staffing. Startups often have this burning desire to grow their organization into the next big corporation. The headcount of an organization is an important indicator of its growth. It's for this reason that many startups tend to scale faster on headcount than they ideally should. Employees are a permanent expense that many startup companies simply cannot afford. Instead, they can outsource some of their work to other companies. Permanent team members should only be added once their revenues have become stable. To make sure that only team members who will benefit the company are chosen, the hiring process should be closely monitored. Number 5. Branding. Branding can be a two-way street. It works for the big companies as well as other startups. Its benefits are not really measurable at an early stage, but essentially, branding is a long-term game. The issue with startups is that they're so uncertain about their long-term viability, so spending money on prints and billboards are not really a justified expense, as these expenses would run counter to the lean business model that startups are expected to follow. A startup is more likely to fail if its funds are poorly managed, and so it's crucial for them to know exactly where their money is going. No matter how big or small a business is, fund management is essential. To sum it up, getting funding is a very difficult task for a startup venture. But the difficulty doesn't end there. Startups need to ensure that they spend money on the right things. We've come to the end of the video. If you stayed till this point, then you found this content interesting. Tell us what you think in the comment section down below and support us by hitting the like button. Also subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever we upload valuable content like this. Thanks for your time, and until next time, stay inspired.